All right. Well, once again, thank you all so much for being here today. We're excited to come and speak with you about interviewing for success and at UC Davis and UC Davis Health. Super happy to have partnered with Highlands Community Charter School to be able to speak with you all today. So thanks to Princess for having us, and hopefully we're able to provide some useful information to you all. Before we get into the content of our presentation today, though, I'd like to briefly kind of go over introductions. So my name is Alejandra Martinez. I'm a Diversity and Outreach Coordinator within Leadership, Recruitment, and Diversity Services, which is kind of like a subset of HR within our UC Davis institution. And I get to kind of facilitate and coordinate and conduct a bunch of outreach events to really get folks interested in opportunities at UC Davis Health. So events like today and career fairs, things like that. I've been in this position for about a year now, and prior to that, I was a recruiter for a Native American government for a few years. So have a lot of experience looking at resumes, sitting in on interviews, and helping guide job seekers towards their employment opportunities. So hope to provide some useful information for you all today about that. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to Delmi, who's going to be co-presenting today.
Hi, everyone. As Ali mentioned, thank you so much for joining. I'm Delmi. I'm our Senior Talent Acquisition Partner in our Leadership, Recruitment, and Diversity Services team. I have been, I've been in talent acquisition for over 5 years, and I just love connecting with people. I think the outreach portion of what we do here at UC Davis is probably my favorite. So it's exciting to be here and share a little bit about the process with you guys.
All right, so just a quick agenda overview of what we'll be going over today. We want to kind of give a brief overview of things to keep in mind before you step into an interview, or the application process before the interview, how to best prepare for an interview, virtual interview tips and tricks, different types of behavioral-based interview questions that are asked, as well as the STAR format, which is a method of responding to behavioral-based interview questions. And we'll go over that in detail, as well as interview follow-up and next steps, so that you can be best prepared for every aspect of the interview process once you've applied for a job and have been invited for an interview opportunity. So wanted to kind of quickly go over what steps to really consider before the interview process itself. So make sure that you are thoroughly reviewing the job posting that you are applying to, and taking the few extra minutes to fill out the application itself. Every time you apply for a job, every time you're looking at a position, you should be tailoring your resume to that position. It's very important because we have what are minimum and preferred qualifications. So the documents that you submit for each position should demonstrate how you meet or exceed those required or minimum, as well as those preferred qualifications. So I know it can sound a little tedious trying to, if you're applying for several different types of positions, but tailoring your resume is really going to make a world of difference. So definitely encourage you to make sure that you're doing that for every job posting you apply to, and also making sure that you apply by the final filing date listed on the job posting. All of our positions posted on our website have a closing date, so you just want to make sure you're mindful of that closing date. For more information on steps to take prior to your interview, please visit our Job Talk Archive webpage. That webpage has really great resources of other job talks that we've had that goes over the resume and cover letter in great detail, and can really, has some great information for you to pull from, so that you can apply utilizing all of those tools and resources. With that, I think I'll go ahead and hand it over to Delmi.
Thank you. So we wanted to review the application and interview process here at UC Davis and UC Davis Health. So I'm going to go over this slide, and while it's kind of in order, please note that sometimes these steps can be in a different order just depending on the position, on the hiring manager, or the department. But as Ali mentioned, we have a final filing date. So when we post positions, we do list a final filing date. So if you see something that you're interested, please, make note of that date. So if you're tailoring your resume, maybe you don't leave it until if you think you have the weekend, just double check, because it's always heartbreaking if you find something you want to apply for, you work on your resume, and then you go to apply for it and it's already taken down. But yeah, so just keep note of the final filing date. So after we have that final filing date, we take a look at all of the applications that have come through. So here at UC Davis and UC Davis Health recruiters, we don't have software that goes through resumes to look for keywords. The software is us, our eyes. We're taking a look at every single candidate that applies. And then we're looking at the minimum qualifications for the position. So something that we utilize is a screening grid where we list all of the minimum qualifications as well as the preferred qualifications. And we will take a look at your resume, cover letter, application, and see whether you meet those minimum qualifications or if you also meet the preferred qualifications. Something Ali mentioned about tailoring your resume, the important thing is, you don't want us to assume whether or not you have or meet the minimum criteria, because we are reviewing them. And sometimes certain positions can have, a high volume of candidates. It's important that you do highlight them. So take a look at the position and the job description and make sure that if you do meet them, that you highlight that in your resume, those, required minimum qualifications. And then once we go through that full screening, we pass along the candidates, so the applications of those who meet the minimum qualifications, to the hiring manager or the department for their review. And then once they review it, they give us a list of people that they would like to move forward with. And that is when you would get a phone call from the recruiter or sometimes the hiring manager to review your interest and qualifications and then schedule for the first round of interviews. Once that first round of interviews happens, typically the committee or the recruitment committee will meet, talk about the candidates that they interviewed, and then make a, kind of a decision on who their top finalists are to go to a second round of interviews. And that second round of interviews could be a one-on-one meeting, or it could involve, different individuals, maybe from different teams as well. Or it could be a full day interview, just depending on the position. But, just like I mentioned, the steps could go and, maybe you do a one-on-one first and then you do the panel as the final. But typically this is what you can expect during the application and interview process here with us. If you have applied and you have, passed the screening and you've been invited to the interview, now what? So a couple of key things that we suggest you do is make sure that you review, our company's website or, any organization's website that you're applying for. If they have, the own department website, make sure you check on that and kind of drill down a little bit deeper. Here at UC Davis, we have what we call principles of community, which is very important for us. We want to make sure that we have a very inclusive culture. And so the principles of the community is something that if you're interested, make sure you are aware and kind of read through that. And also know our mission and vision. So anytime you're applying somewhere, we spend so much time at our work. So it's really important that you feel connected and tied to the not only the principles of community, but to the mission and vision of the organization that you want to work for. And then look into the organizational strategies and priorities. Go do a quick little search about maybe some exciting news about the organization. And these are just to show that you are interested. So if you are interviewing and maybe you can weave some of these things into your, answers to questions, that's always looked upon favorably because it shows that you are interested, that you're engaged, and that you want to be part of that community. And then the last two tips would be definitely for preparation for you. So the job postings that we have are typically a more generalized version of the full position description. And one of the things too is if you apply for something and then you move on to interviews, sometimes that posting has already been taken down. So you want to make sure that you review that position description prior to your interview. So reach out to your recruiter or HR partner, whoever assisted in helping you, schedule the interview. Reach out and ask them for that full formal position description so that you could review it. You could see what the main responsibilities are going to be, and you can kind of think about any questions about how your experience relates to what the position is looking for. And lastly, make sure that you have full interview details. So confirm, how and where you will be meeting. Is it going to be via Zoom, WebEx? What platform will it be? Who you'll be meeting with. Make sure that you have, full titles, so names and titles of the people that will be in that panel interview. And, time. So just confirm all of those things to make sure that you're ready and prepared. And so we wanted to quickly go over some virtual guide tips and tricks because nowadays in the world that we're living in, this is kind of what it looks like. We're doing a lot of virtual interviews and it's a little bit different. So just a couple of things to talk through to make sure that you have a successful virtual interview. So the first thing is make sure that you test your technology beforehand. Make sure that you have access to the web or app version of the platform that will be used. We have many different platforms. Even here at UC Davis, we kind of go through either Zoom, WebEx, or Microsoft Teams, depending on the preference of the department or hiring manager. And, maybe you think that you've worked on Zoom so much, you think WebEx might be the exact same thing, but it really isn't, so make sure that you feel comfortable, maybe, that you know how to utilize the camera and that you test the microphone capability. And then one of the things that I think is not really talked too much about is making sure that your equipment is fully charged and that you have a strong internet connection. So one of the worst things that could happen is maybe you are in the middle of giving a really great answer and then you notice that your laptop is dying, or maybe you kind of cut off and then they don't hear the second half of that really great answer that you just gave. So make sure that you test that. That's going to be key in kind of helping you throughout that interview. And then setting the stage. So this is going to be for both you and for the interviewers. So make sure that you have a distraction-free background with adequate lighting. Sometimes a neutral background is best. And then also for yourself, make sure that you have a distraction-free zone. Make sure that your phone is on silent. If you have pets, I know I have pets that love to interrupt meetings. Make sure that they are outside so that you aren't distracted by anything. You can fully, think about the questions that are being asked and answer them appropriately. And then the dress for success. So make sure that you treat a virtual interview just like you do an in-person interview. So make sure that you wear professional attire to not only put your best foot forward, but also boost your confidence, kind of creating that right mindset for you. It's tempting in this day and age to, be professional or maybe a little bit more relaxed, but really treat it as you would if you were going in person, to really ensure that you have the best mindset going into it. And we talked about, doing your research on the organization that you're interviewing with. So do your research on UC Davis and the specific department that you're looking to join. Again, make sure that you review the job description and that you prepare and practice potential interview questions. Be prepared to speak about your experiences and qualifications, specifically as they relate to that specific job position that you're interviewing for. And then, professional etiquette. So make sure that you are logged in early so that you have time to test anything. Make sure that you're not late. So, be mindful of everybody's time. Of course, we're mindful of your time, but, just make sure that you're there on time and be fully engaged. So, if you need to take notes, that's perfectly fine. Something I will say is, sometimes if I'm going to be taking notes, I will just state that, you know, I'm not looking down because I'm distracted. Just note that I will be taking some notes. And then that way they're not wondering why you're maybe looking down or anything. And then bring the energy. So it's a little bit hard, I know, to kind of come across and bring out your personality, but make sure that you smile. I know we can all be a little bit nervous at the beginning of an interview, but just try to, bring yourself and really be engaged with the team. And then the last kind of tip is to follow up within 24 hours with a thank you email to express your gratitude and just interest. And then we'll kind of talk a little bit about some tips for that in the next couple of slides. All right, so common interview questions. So these are a couple of standard interview questions. And when we talk about standard interview questions, it's just the core of what they're looking for or asking. You know, tell us about your resume and your experience. How has your background prepared you for this role? What are you, why are you interested in this position? And what expertise or skill set would you bring to the table? Now, of course, these questions may not be asked in this exact way. It could be a variation of these, but generally, you're always going to be asked about your experience, about why you're interested, and why you think you are the right person for the position. So just make sure to think about these questions beforehand and practice. So practice by yourself in front of the mirror. I know I don't like to look at myself in a recording, but sometimes the uncomfortable things make you better at it. So maybe even record yourself in answering these questions and then review it. One of the reasons why you want to practice is also because of timing. If you have 8 questions and you have an hour, you don't want to take up all of that time maybe in the first question. So make sure that you rehearse some of those questions so that you're able to concisely say what you want to say. And then, prepare and think of examples to share during your interview that relate to the job description. So Ali will be talking a little bit about the STAR method, but it is important that you think of examples for certain interview questions so that you're not left, using up maybe a minute to think about an example, a time when X, Y, Z. So with that, I think we kick it off to Ali.
So as Delmi had mentioned, we wanted to kind of delve into the STAR format. And the STAR format is it's an acronym and a tool to utilize when responding to behavioral-based interview questions throughout your interview. And what the STAR format stands for is situation, task, action, and result. So these are different aspects of a response that a well thought out interview question response would have, right? So the STAR technique is perfect for all aspects of the job hunt because it lets you talk about achievements on your resume rather than boring tasks and responsibilities. So it's more so focused on storytelling and telling your interview panel your past experiences that relates to your ability to succeed in this role, rather than just listing off how oh, I'm great with Excel spreadsheets, or I can really I have experience with Microsoft Word. Whatever the case is, whatever your experience is, it's much more interesting to hear you tell a story about your experience than it is just to list off your skill sets. So this is a great method of taking advantage of that and really engaging in your interview with your interview panel. So the types of questions that a STAR format response is best suited for are behavioral-based interview questions. And behavioral-based interview questions are, again, more so focused on you telling your story. It's about getting candidates to respond with their past experiences. And you'll notice that theme with these examples of behavioral-based interview questions we have listed here. So you can see, tell me about a time you had a conflict at work. You know, that this is asking you as a candidate to think back about, you know, a time when you had to respond to a certain situation at work. So it's asking you to tell a story. Can you describe a stressful situation that you went through and how you handled it? Can you detail a mistake you made and how you reacted to it? Tell me about a time when you performed well under enormous pressure. Give me an example of a goal you couldn't meet and how you handled not being able to meet that goal. So again, if you notice the theme within all of these types of questions, it's not necessarily asking for the qualifications you have, it's more asking about the behaviors that you took under certain situations in your previous experience. So you want to make sure to keep different scenarios and experiences in mind, and really consider how you can utilize your past experience to respond to these types of interview questions. And that's going to be a really great way to prepare for interviews, especially at UC Davis and UC Davis Health. There are a few things to keep and points to keep in mind as you figure out how to prepare for specifically STAR method of responding to interview questions. So make sure that you remember or memorize the STAR acronym itself: remember situation, task, action, and response, because it makes it so much easier to answer a list of behavioral-based interview questions if you have that method in your brain already kind of delved out. And make sure to remember in the proper order, so you're accurately giving, a response that goes through the situation, goes through a task, tells the panel what actions you took, and then kind of list the results off in a positive way. Make sure that you practice, you spend time getting comfortable with the STAR formula, and even utilizing the internet, looking at different examples of behavioral-based interview questions and then STAR format responses that you can really kind of gain inspiration from. And then make sure that you prepare by writing down those examples so that you have them in your back pocket and ready to go when those questions are inevitably asked. So with that information all kind of delved out, we want to kind of dive into an example of a behavioral-based interview question and how you can utilize a STAR format to give a really great response that would leave your interview panel impressed, hopefully. So if we look at this example here, the interview question would be, tell me about a time when you performed well under enormous pressure. This question is, or a question similar to this with the same thematic elements can be seen in almost every type of interview across UC Davis and UC Davis Health, as well as in, a majority of other organizations. But you can utilize a STAR format and really if you really think about the example highlighted here, you can see how it best utilizes the STAR method of responding to give a concise and really well thought out answer. So if this candidate were asked, tell me about a time when you performed well under enormous pressure, we would first think of the situation that they want to describe. So at my last job, my coworker had a family emergency and needed to miss work for some time, and their high priority project was left unfinished and without a manager. So this kind of sets the stage for the story you're telling in your response, right? That's what the situation does. It tells the interview panel, this was the problem, and this was what I was left to deal with. So really setting the stage with the situation. And then next, you want to kind of delve into the task. So what was asked of you in this situation? Well, my supervisor instructed me to take on the project, and with no leniency on the deadline, I had days to complete a project that originally should have taken several weeks. So this was the task that you were asked of. This is what, responsibility you had to take on. So next, you think of the actions that you took, right? What steps did you take to navigate this situation and to undergo this task? Well, the action that I took was that I requested and was granted a reduction in my weekly goals, allotting me more time to attack the special project. As far as my weekly goals, I was able to delegate them out evenly to some of my teammates. So this is a really great example of a good response in terms of the describing the action that you took, because it not only highlights you'll notice that the response is utilizing I. I requested and was granted a reduction in my weekly goals. And as far as my weekly goals, I was able to delegate them out evenly to some of my teammates. So this keeps the focus on you as the candidate. And it also expresses that you were able to, to work closely with your team, and that you were able to collaborate and also delegate. So it shows that leadership qualities and things like that as well. So it's a really great example of describing the action that you took in a very succinct way. And then finally, you want to wrap it up with the results. So with the reduction in my daily goals, I was able to dedicate more time to this special project. And this allowed me to finish it on time with complete accuracy. My supervisor appreciated my attitude and drive, and I was given several more projects after that, along with an eventual promotion and pay raise. So you notice that the results had a positive outcome, and the results continue to keep the candidate or at the focal point of this storytelling. You'll notice the I, utilizing I instead of we or our team, because this is about you as a candidate. This isn't about your department as a whole. This is about selling yourself. So just making sure that the situation, task, action, and results all kind of follow that progress of storytelling, and wrap up with the result being a positive outcome, being you overcoming this situation in a way that highlights your skill set and highlights how you performed well under that enormous pressure. It's a great response to this type of question, because it utilizes the STAR format so effectively. So with that, we just wanted to kind of go over some examples of great questions that you can ask your panel. Again, this is an opportunity for you to show an interest in the organization to ensure that it's the right fit for you. So some great examples are: what is the key to succeeding in this role? What do you or employees like most about working here? What is the work culture like here? And these aren't just questions to improve your interview impress your interview panel. These are questions that you should be interested in knowing as a candidate. Is this going to be a good fit for me? Because just as much as this is an interview for you to get the position, it's also an interview for the position to ensure that you're going to enjoy being in this role, and you're going to be able to succeed in this role. Is there a career path that someone in this position would be expected to follow, especially if you're someone who's looking at opportunities to advance within a field or a department? Taking a look at what career paths there are, what trajectories there are for upwards movement. How well do people with my background adjust to working here? Is this going to be a good fit for me? And what could you tell me about the company that isn't widely known? Just so that you can get some more insight into the organization. These are all really great questions. These are all really insightful. And always make sure that you have questions lined up and ready to go to ask the panel, so that you're not kind of left saying oh, I don't have any questions at all. Just again, shows your interest in the role. With that, I think I'm going to hand it back over to Delmi.
Perfect. So just a couple, I know we talked a little bit about, following up with a thank you after your interview. And just a couple of key things is just to give, a greeting if you have the names, and you should have a list of the names of the people that you interviewed with, but just make sure to address them, share a personal connection, and be specific. Reference the position title that you interviewed for. So thank you very much for the opportunity to interview for, XYZ. From personal experience as a recruiter, I will say I have seen thank you notes with either the wrong organization or the wrong job title. And I understand it's because, sometimes people are interviewing for multiple positions at the same time. But this is just a great reminder to make sure you double check or have somebody else proofread your thank you note. So again, be specific about the position and the skills that you have. So just briefly reference how you feel that you are the right person for the role and why you are still interested in the position after interviewing. And of course, just thank them for their time. And then this is just a little bit about the post-interview or selection process here at UC Davis and UC Davis Health. So once we have the interviews completed, we typically have the panel members provide feedback to the hiring manager or us, the recruiter. And once a final decision is made on either the top finalist or maybe top two finalists, that's when we move on to the reference check. So references, we utilize skill survey, or sometimes we do over the phone interviews, references. And then once we have the references complete, we review that with the hiring manager and, make a formal offer. So we prepare an offer for the candidate. And then, hopefully the offer is accepted. And then that's really when the onboarding process starts. And just to talk a little bit about that. So once an offer is accepted, that position moves on to the pre-employment process with our talent acquisition coordinator, or in certain other organizations, it could be a shared service contact center. But things that you can expect would be to have a background check, a physical exam, a drug screen, I-9 verification, and in some cases, maybe even fingerprinting. I know for us, we utilize that if it's a cash handling position. And the process could take a couple of weeks. So background checks sometimes can take up to a full week. Physical exams have to be done here through us. And, that could take a little bit of time to get your appointment set up. So the whole pre-employment process can take a few weeks. But yeah, just wanted to share a little bit about the post-interview and selection process.
All right. Also really quickly wanted to add, in addition to Delmi's overview, for references, that is something that is heavily utilized across UC Davis and UC Davis Health. So make sure that you have, when you're going through the process, just start to consider, 3 different colleagues that you've had in the past that you can utilize as past references. And then I think for skill surveys specifically, there's typically we request 2 either current or previous managers or supervisors that you've had. So just keeping those in mind as you're kind of applying for positions as to who you can utilize as those references, and making sure that you have them in your back pocket, so to speak, like, that you can reach out to them and request that to utilize them as references. It's going to save you a lot of time when you do get to that step in the process. But with that, I think we can open it up for questions. I know that I think we had one individual raise their hand. I think Aro, I want to make sure I'm saying that right.
The process of laboratory researchers that you guys are hiring for 6 months for short period as a member of that research team, would that be considered as a positive background for me or not?
And so that will depend. I will say I don't, we talked about looking at the exact job description and the, qualifications. I would have to take a look, at both the job description and the resume. But really it is, that's why we have talent acquisition as a team to review those, because I know you mentioned your concern of, whether we review outside candidates outside of Davis. And yes, so making, the recruiters here do take a look at all of our candidates and look to see who meets the minimum qualifications. And if we have a big pool of people that meet minimum qualifications, then it is kind of going up to the preferred qualifications.
There are a lot of, especially with those researcher positions and those lab positions specifically, a lot of those are contracted roles that are like handled a little bit differently than the typical, staff career level opportunities at UC Davis. And there's a lot of nuance to that. So I know that that's not really a direct response, but it just varies on the type of position that you're applying for, whether or not it's contracted or not, whether or not the lab that it's that you're working with, even if it's in UC Davis, it might be like partnered with the scientist or researcher leading that research, for whatever the case may be. So there's just a lot that goes into it, but as Delmi had mentioned, we do want to make our information available to you all by sharing this, our contact information. So we have our contact information on the screen. It has our email address. We encourage you all to reach out to us if you have any questions about specific opportunities that you've applied for and you just want to, know more about that. But I hope that that kind of, Delmi's response and mine kind of gave you some more insight into those, into your question. Want to also make sure that we answer any other questions that folks might have. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or to unmute yourselves and speak to us directly. We'd love to see and hear you all as well.
Yeah, I think I see Tasha.
Yes.
Hi, Tasha.
Hi. I just had a question in regards to meeting MQs during the process of selecting candidates. What did the MQ stand for?
Minimum qualifications.
Oh, that was just okay, because I know. Okay, yes, and then after that, followed up with the minimum and the preferred qualifications that are looked at. Okay, that was my only question that I was stuck on, but everything else was very informative and helpful, very helpful.
Thank you, Tasha. And thank you for that. Maybe we will just spell out the minimum qualifications. I know we tend to use a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
So it's always good. I know sometimes it's second nature to us, but that we'll make that note. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I do have another question. I don't know, I didn't think that I was going to ask it, but similar to what the previous gentleman was talking about, as far as these tips, are they kind of applicable throughout like many positions that might be available?
Yes, and then specifically to the, minimum qualifications, that's one of the reasons why we mentioned tailoring your resume, even if it's just tweaking it just a tiny bit, because you don't want us to, to maybe bypass you just because we can't, maybe we don't want to guess whether or not you meet that qualification. And sometimes, and it sounds a little bit tedious, but sometimes we have, people that have manager level roles, right? And so you can infer from that they've managed, people, but you still want to call out some of those things, that you have experience in managing people, or, so just look at the job description and maybe if you can highlight some of your experience to meet those. That way it's easier for the recruiter when we're looking through your resume to check that box off. Yep, they meet that qualification, rather than maybe trying to guess, maybe they do, maybe in that role they did that, but I don't know. So that would be,
Oh, yeah.
in terms of any position, is, I think that is the important part.
Okay, thank you.
And just to follow up with that, all the students or everybody on the call today and graduates have access to the Center for Workforce Solutions. So we have maybe like a first eye, right? And then Ali and Delmi put their contact information as well. Utilize us, let us support you, bring your job description so we can look at the minimum qualifications to share with you what you can update on your resume. That's what we do, and that's what we're here for, to help you along the way before you even get to UC Davis. So let us help you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Ali and Delmi, for lending an hour of your time today to share this information. We appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys all soon.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for this